Welcome to episode 11 of the podcast. And in this episode, we're going to talk about how to build your legs and back, as I think those are very popular muscle groups. And we'll give you our sort of favorite techniques and tips on how you can go about this. I kind of wish we'd recorded our chat before. That was quite interesting. We were just discussing the size of the baby in terms of fruit.
It was a short pregnancy podcast, I guess.
Yeah, the spin-off.
I always find our pre-podcast chats are the best. We should just start the camera rolling in case we get good juicy conversation. But yeah, I think legs are probably the most popular, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I've seen better backs more recently because more people are doing push-pull legs. So people are getting better backs. Also, I think legs have got better with people because there's a stigma around skipping leg day. Obviously, not everyone's still into that, legs. But generally speaking, there's a bit more push towards actually doing legs. And especially, for women, it's like getting in and, although from what I hear, fashion's moving on, going back to sort of skinny Kate Moss fashion. But, I'm not sure our listeners are more still into big glutes and quads. So I think, and I think the easiest thing to forget for a woman is back. And I always say to female competitors, if you can get your lats wide, it makes your waist look really small. So it's like framing shoulders, lats, down to a small waist, slightly back out for glutes, and curve for the quad. But, I think for men, I think big back kind of is, something everyone wants because it gives you that automatic impression of being big.
Yeah.
I know it's not like a t-shirt muscle like an arm where you can walk around in a tight t-shirt flexing your pipes all the time, but it makes you look just actually bigger.
Sorry, this is not very scientific. It was just funny when we were looking through our wedding photos. There's one picture, and Neil was like, "Look at my back," and it's like an alien through his t-shirt. He was like, "Yes,
nice." It was covering you. I was like, "Oh, okay."
Like that bit of wedding cake pump.
Yeah.
Makes the carbs hit him.
It's also it's just one of those muscles, especially if you're not a competitor. You're just training it. You never. Like you don't have mirrors in your house to look at your everything else you can sort of see. Yeah. So back is one of those, it's almost like training with hope. You're just there hoping, you know what, I hope this is working my lats until you see a picture or someone, approaches you from the back and is like, hey, like it's not like abs, chest where you can be like, oh, okay, I see, if you have a coach, good, and someone take photos from the back, you can see, but it's one of those muscles. I find it's you have so many angles, so many things to do, and you just sit and hope you're doing the right thing for your back.
I remember, Kevin, my client that you guys know, he I remember when his lats started to grow, and he was like, oh. He started noticing I'm sort of being in the way more. But when you're rowing, you can actually start feeling your lats in. He's like, at first he's like, oh, it's getting uncomfortable. Like vests or t-shirts. You had to go buy bigger clothes. And I think that's the thing because your back is the thing that makes you look and be bigger. It's a big. The back is a massive muscle group, and it ties in nicely to the legs, which is another big muscle group.
Yeah, and I think women like training it as well. Like if you're wearing your backless tops or whatever, like having just a nice, well-shaped back always looks good. But it does make finding clothes hard. Like if you have big lats, it's really tough.
Yeah,
And
t-shirts riding up and.
Well, it's more like if you for sports bras or just bras in general or dress not made for those dimensions. But that's
I was gonna say bras in general, because obviously your back plays a significant role in what bra you can wear.
It really does. I just wear sports bras now. It's so much more comfortable.
Comfortable.
But I also think there's, so many more pages and YouTube pages on, how to train your back more effectively, like from Coach Kasem, and you watch Big Mike, and I know for both of us that made a big difference. Like I never ever used to feel my lats. I mean, maybe I was working them. You can't solely rely on sensation, but when you find the right setup for certain movements, I was like, okay.
I think the problem is too many people think to do their back, just go in and do some lat pull downs.
Which aren't even lat pull downs.
They're not even, they don't. You can make them hit your lats, but you're mainly high rowing. You have to sort of twist and work. That's why actually I don't. Can you hear me still? Must be.
Yep.
Okay, good. So I tend to do them unilaterally if I'm going to do a lat pull down, so I can actually feel it into my lat. But the reality is, there's better exercises. As we said, lat pull downs are not the best lat. They're not a lat builder, but definite. They might give you a nice little pump if you can hit it, but as well as your rear delts and traps.
Like in the past few years after competing, well, during competitions, take pictures, and I noticed, like, just before you don't have the knowledge and everything, and then after coaching with JP and just doing things like we did DeFranco's program and just watching Coach Kasem and guys, I'd go back to my pictures and notice I had a more powerful upper back.
Most people.
And looking back, it's like for lats, it was mostly, quote unquote lat pull downs. And sometimes it was too heavy. And then you also look at the setup, and it was really more upper back, because even when it's heavy, I'm leaning back. Whereas if it was lat, I'd be leaning forward and squeezing back. So after understanding that, it's why, because every time I'd be like looking at pictures and I'm like, this and this are growing, but man, my lats they're lagging behind. And it's now after that, I've been now in hitting lats, like Claire said, learning different angles, even just rowing with bubbles differently and dumbbells. And you realize
it's so common though. You can walk around any gym and you see guys with massive traps and no back. You're like,
it's like from mid way to.
What are you doing?
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe we can break the back muscles down, and then how you could schedule your training split to bias the back, and then maybe
and we can prioritize it within a session, how we set it up and what exercises. Like we'll talk about a pull session. Let's talk about like when we look at a pull session, for instance, and how we would structure a pull session.
So I guess muscles of the back. First of all, a bit of basic anatomy.
Top to bottom.
Top to bottom. Top to toe.
From trapezius.
Okay, yeah. So
you got you got your big traps, yeah.
We should have a little diagram here.
Right.
Gents, take your tops off.
Turn around, Leon.
Yeah.
Audio.
There's that post-wedding back.
Yeah, let's.
I might get more on YouTube.
I usually have
thumbnail, clickbait. Leon gets naked on camera.
I know that's
views right.
You have a load of random Indian guys watching.
I know. That'll be the most watched podcast. That's because of clickbait.
All right. Well, take us through it then.
I just opened. There's an app I use.
It's actually really good app.
Told us about it. It's called Essential Anatomy.
Essential Anatomy.
You can go all the way into the nerves. You buy it once. I think I bought it for both of us. So you can use it up to 3 or 4 people, I think.
But it's nice because you can strip away.
Yeah, each muscle.
Yeah, layers. Yeah. Take the layers off.
Bones, see the nerves. Yeah, it's great. All right, so top.
Trapezius.
Yeah, we can just start with the trap, I guess. What people consider trap is what they see from front.
But it goes quite low down.
Yeah,
It does.
exactly.
I think much lower than people think.
Yeah.
And like you said, Andy, most people overdevelop the top.
Oh yeah.
But then have quite weak lower
Yeah.
traps, which can lead to a lot of
But lower trap's important for stability, and it should go down to sort of almost bottom of the scapula.
Yep, really low. It's like I'd say that's
almost
mid back where
it is mid back. It joins mid back. It joins to
yeah,
and that's a real trigger point. I always get that.
you get that tightness there.
Right there, you put your ball in. Oh,
But you know why? It's when people get stressed, shrugging, or working at a laptop, bending over and lifting their shrugging their traps up. It just tightens that bottom bit because it's never it's not activated. It's just pulled tight all the time and so it bunches.
and I mean it's attaching right at the base of as well.
Back of your neck, yeah.
I mean, again, there's a lot of tension.
It's one of the things we do with Theo's mom when I did Feldenkrais, and I had like scapula was just feeling tight, and it just like that drop, and even she'd say she's like even your traps, like you can see the separation between traps and
it was amazing. You could actually see it.
It's like you can tell the difference just from that.
Like the muscle had relaxed because when it's contracted, you don't see it so much. It was really
my favorite traps were on Danny Trejo in Desperado. He did that film with Antonio Banderas, so he's assassin with his guitar case. His traps joining up under his ear, but he wasn't like a big guy. He just had the most ridiculous set of traps, and it's like nothing was particularly big on him. He was in good shape.
Yeah.
Except for he must have been all shrug. Like he must have been just doing lat pull downs or doing pull ups. Maybe he was just doing pull ups. And he was very engaged with his traps, but they would start from under his ears.
Yeah, it's like with wrestling, Goldberg.
Yeah.
I think at that point every dude wanted big traps. No one cared for arms.
Yeah, it's funny because I used to have, when I swam, I had quite big traps and I always hated it. But then, things change, of course, now. I think, quite juicy traps look good on women too.
Yeah, like I think it's another one that it's hard. If your traps join too high on your neck for a man, like I'm not, mine don't join too high up. Getting shirt collars to fit.
It's a problem.
It becomes a real problem. Like
you're tailoring everything now.
Problems. Okay, so we got traps. All right.
So I guess we
got rear delts. You got your rear delts to side.
I was thinking because even rear delts, most you work from pull.
It's a pulling. Yeah, it's a pulling muscle.
Yeah, I mean they're quite small.
Yeah.
But they're important for shoulder stability and for that pulling mechanism of bringing that, retracting the arms back.
And to have nice 3D shoulders.
Yeah, or if you want good shoulders, a lot of people need to realise it's not just all shoulder pressing or lateral cable raises. It's actually that rear delt's really important to give shape of a shoulder.
It can be quite hard to isolate and grow. I think it will get into exercise selection, but I remember I did struggle with them for a while until I found correct arm path, things like that.
I guess next we go to the teres.
Yeah, teres major, minor.
Yeah, small muscle, but I think it's what you're saying, Sam. It's one of the videos I was watching, and sometimes what people think is rear delt is actually teres.
Yeah.
Like I say, the other part of the teres is what people think their lat is. We think, I got lats. Actually, no, it's just your teres. It's just teres. Your lat's not actually doing a lot.
And I guess that's where now playing with angles come in.
Exactly. And that's the thing. That's the problem with things like lat pull downs and stuff where you're leaning back. Your teres takes a lot of the activation. Your lat won't. It becomes a trap, rear delt, and teres exercise.
Yeah, that's so true. And I mean, it's great like seeing you guys when you're shredded because then you can see all these individual muscles, which is very cool.
You can see if you've been putting in the work also.
I mean, then of course we have the lats.
Yeah, the big
latissimus dorsi.
What's the rhomboids?
Rhomboids, yes.
I was trying to see if there's any hidden
rhomboids before. I would put rhomboids before lats, although lats attach higher. Which one you would say is higher?
No, rhomboids are higher.
Yeah. Okay, good. I was gonna say I think they attach higher.
Well, let's.
So then, so we've got rhomboids, lats. Yeah, I think those are the
Done to erectus.
oh yeah, the erectors. Yeah, yep. And then there's quite a bit of fascia down there as well.
Oh, loads of fascia down the bottom.
I was just checking, like under the, I don't know if it counts, but the serratus comes back like under
it peels round, you know.
Gosh, yeah. Well, now you're getting deep. Now,
it's just
now
that's
It
why
stays underneath. That's more of a connection thing.
When you go into the app,
it's incredible.
Just
That's really
so
yeah.
it does show like the connection of the serratus into where the traps sort of go in. So
yeah, but those
but
are
anyway,
the
we'll
main
the
ones.
serratus just sort of wraps round, but I don't think. Well, it's a bit of stability there, but
the boxer muscle, as it's called. Anyway.
Serratus. Well, that's mainly anterior. The feather.
When you're punching.
The feathers.
It's one of the things that looks like really good though when you're shredded.
It does.
When you're shredded.
It's one of those. I remember when you're doing any mini cut prep, it's like when you see them, you're like,
that's all you want to see.
Yeah, now we're
now you know you.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the main muscles. So we've got traps, rear delts, rhomboids, teres minor, major, lats, and your erectors. And I mean, a lot of people forget that the back, your back is part of your core. So it's really important to have a nice strong back. And I think, I mean, like Andy said, people are focusing more on it, but before, I think, especially for guys, like, push, too much focus on chest, you can lead to real issues and imbalances. And again, like Leon says, because you can't always see your back, sometimes you tend to forget. So I think, I mean, in general, like having a really strong posterior chain is so important. But then
I was going to say that whole balance thing is front to back balance, but also top to bottom balance. Like you want your back to be balanced with your chest, but also balanced across the back because, everything works together for your stability and keeping your spine in a good position. As soon as something gets pulled out of the way and your spine, it starts getting a weird curve to it because one side's tighter or top's tighter. That's when you start getting bulging discs and you start getting, disc issues and, which just get worse over time.
I think it's just important to say it's not all for aesthetics. We're talking
most of it's not for aesthetics actually. When we talk about the back, there's nothing worse than having a bad back. Even if I've had like a spasm in the back just from whatever muscle decides to spasm, that is super painful. People though who have true bad backs, where they get bulging discs or prolapse discs, that will lay you up like nothing else and stop you from training, stop you from even walking.
Any movement you make.
Any movement. So that's why the back is so important beyond aesthetics, because if you want to be able to work and spend time with your kids or go even for a walk, you want your back to be feeling good.
Yeah, and a lot of the time these issues come from having a weak back. Or again, like overtraining certain parts of it. So just within your program, making sure that you are training all those muscles and just knowing how to hit them effectively. So let's say setting up your training split for the week, with a back bias, how would you guys go about it?
Well, thing I want to focus most on is how I start. It's the first session of the week. So off of a rest day, maybe post. If I'm in a, if I'm cutting, it'd be post refeed. It'd be say a slightly higher day because I tend to do higher days on on a rest day. If it's on a gaining phase, it'd be where my calories are at their highest in the week. So depending on how your nutrition split up, it'd be the session off, where there's the highest calories on a gaining thing. And I always, I like to start the week so I'm not fresh. Like post rest day, got plenty of energy, lift, so I can put maximum progress into my lifts. And I think the push-pull legs kind of splits actually works great for the back. It's worse for some of the extremities, like the arms, You have to work it carefully. But for things like those big, solid, big muscle groups, push-pull legs works treat.
Yeah, I do the same stuff with pull, but only because nowadays legs is just hard. And well, it's always been hard, and I used to enjoy it.
Pull's
Yeah,
my favorite session, to be fair.
yeah, but it's like I said before, when I used to pull, it was too upper back biased, and not because I wanted. It's what I saw in magazines, lat pull downs. It's what.
Here's the thing, though. It's like every magazine photo of Ronnie and everyone was always on a lat pull down machine, and the photo taken from the back. And going,
Exactly. And then traps, the elite. And
yeah.
so for obviously starting out, young, just learning, but
it's also the easiest exercise. Like, here's the thing. This is why a lot of people start off with things like this. When you're looking around the gym and you're new, and if you haven't had a trainer and you're like, oh, okay, what's not going to embarrass me? Oh, that thing looks easy.
Yeah.
You see people just sitting there doing this and doing really lightweight on the lat pull down, and it's easy.
Special handles, you just grab and go.
Yeah, exactly, grab and go. You grip it and rip it. But
sorry.
I was gonna say, but that's the thing. When you're young, you want to do. You don't think what's gonna challenge me most. You're like, oh, okay, what's the easiest things to do?
Yeah.
Initially, always.
Yeah, fair enough.
And then it was always lat pull downs, barbell rows, dumbbell rows, and pull-ups, chin-ups.
Which are all great exercises. They all have a place. I just think when we're looking at a session, I always start. So I'll tell you how I start every pull session. I do face pulls, laying face pulls, purely to warm up and mobilize the shoulder joints. Also, I like to pre-exhaust the rear delt, so it's less active, so it's more tired when I'm doing other things. So I can sort of try and keep it out of other exercises. So I'll always start off with a nice laying face pull. So I always do it laying down on the floor and pull from a high position. That way I'm not using any of my body to pull it, so I do know I'm focusing on those rear delts. Then I will go for next one's one of my big lifts. It'd be either a chest supported T-bar row if you've got it, or a bent over barbell row. Normally something like that, and that's where the true meat and potatoes of my workout is. It's probably where it's gonna knack me out most. Then I'll tend to switch to something like a dumbbell barbell row, or if there's a machine, a chest supported close grip, neutral grip row of sorts. Ideally plate load, a bit like the Atlantis one in when we were training at Fit Rev, something like that.
It was really good.
And then do some unilateral pull downs. And I tend to be my last back. It was if I'm programming for someone, I would tend to I do pull ups. I just tend to, if I'm programming for someone, do something like an assisted pull up. Because I also think people get a lot of personal satisfaction out of pull ups.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like the best for hypertrophy, but for
no, it's not. But it's for motivation. And here's the thing, for especially female clients, what's your goals? I'd love to be able to do a pull up. So we start with assisted pull ups, and we work towards doing at least one unaided by the end of the program.
Yeah, no, I think I think that's good. So like, push pull legs is great. I remember doing that. My back got really hammered, so you did have to be quite careful. Because I mean, some of them you do deadlifts on the pull day as well. And
see, I tend to do I tend to keep to RDLs and do them on my leg day.
Okay.
Which means I have to split up, and this is the thing when we're setting up. I normally do, I'll tend to do pull push legs to separate pull and legs, and then have a rest day. And if it's still not recovered, I'll have an extra rest day in if needs be then before I do pull again. because it's taxing. RDLs are taxing,
very
and you feel them in your back. So
Yeah.
I tend not to do deadlifts. I do programming for some people who actually enjoy them, and because there should be some element of enjoyment to a training session, and also if they get benefit out of them. I
Yeah.
always tend to say I prefer an RDL, but for me, most of my work comes in from those bent over rows or the chest supported rows because after that, everything else is just that's my big builder. Everything else then becomes a bit more isolation, and then obviously I then think I better finish up on a couple of exercises just for biceps or and or hammer curls as well thrown in.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, when you're doing the deadlifts there, it's more of like isometric. You're just it's just holding. The back is you're not, it's not like a row or anything. It's more of that kind of isometric hold, which is still good. Like you can I think it can build you a nice big back, especially
it can, and it is. It depends on what type of deadlifter you are.
Yeah.
You got two different types of deadlifters. You get back dominant deadlifters, then leg drive deadlifters.
Oh, I'm back.
The people that are really good at it combine the two and seamlessly switch between the two. Now, if you're not very good, like I don't think my body's not really built well for deadlifts. Relatively wrong levers to find the effectiveness of it. So I tend to be, either it depends. I can go in and say, right, I'm gonna really must drive my legs this time, and I drive my legs and I forget to put too much back in, and then I'm like the opposite. So that's why I prefer just RDLs. But an actual good deadlifter transitions between leg drive to that hip, hinge movement, and to use that back as well, back and legs at the same time to generate that initial.
It's not
drive.
easy because, like you say, you're concentrating. You're like, okay, got to push through my legs. So I find them dominant, and then you kind of forget. So it can be hard.
Raise back.
It's also like, what do you want to focus on? Are you working more on your upper back? Are you trying to get your lats? Whichever one it is, put that first. Although I like what you said, like, start with something like face pulls. It doesn't need to be super heavy. I would never go really heavy on face pulls.
No, you can't really. It's like,
we're doing light and do higher reps.
Yeah.
It's about getting blood into the joints. That's how I see it.
Just shoulder health, like you can do the face pull with a rotation. There are very
that's what I do. I pull, rotate back, and get a bit of rotate cuff movement.
I think most people, when it comes to back, which is a problem, a lot of people use momentum, and they just assume, oh, it's going. I did 20.
That's why I do laying face pulls. And people look at me like I'm quite crazy in the gym because I suddenly lay down on my back at a cable station. But it takes out any momentum. So you're not relying on. The thing you miss is maybe bracing your core a little bit. But to be fair, I'm gonna be catching up with that in the other exercises. I'm not too fussed about that. For me, it's like, let's get as much blood into his shoulder and elbow joints, ready for some pulling, and get a little bit of a pump in the rear delt.
That's perfect.
I like it. Kneeling, half kneeling, or seated.
That's good too. You're getting a lot of seated is nice because you can just.
I think the good thing about the laying one is you can get that nice
extra. Right. I think you're frozen.
I don't know why it's being naughty now. Our machine
frozen on.
Yeah, Andy's frozen. I'm sure he'll be back. It's frozen on the Facebook. I want you get a good demo. But our machine, sadly, you couldn't lie down. It would hit the top. Hi, Andy. Sorry, you froze.
I was still here. I could hear you.
Oh,
I could hear, and you guys are frozen for me. So I was just like, oh wait. Once they're moving, I know I'm unfrozen.
I think it was a lag spike or whatever. A
lag spike, that's a new term. But so should we go through some of like our favorite mid back exercises? Lats. I wish we had that chest supported T-bar row. That's just,
I love a chest support T-bar row.
But that is a really great like mid upper back move.
I love a T-bar row full stop. If you can't get a chest supported one, all you got to do is make sure you can brace properly and hold your body at the correct angle, and you're not using your lower back to generate the drive.
Yeah, that's where chest support is just so great, because then you can really manage your low back fatigue. Because I think, like, if I do bent over rows, it just hits my lower back. Dumbbell's a bit better for me, but barbell, I just can't do.
And I'm lucky in the sense that I do feel my bent over rows in my mid back and lats rather than my lower back, and I think I've got quite a good position now where I can lock it in and then not worry. Obviously, there's always going to be a little bit of erectors being used, because once you got to get into that position first. What I tend to do is I pick it up almost like a deadlift, and then lean back down into it, lock, then row.
And then sorry.
No, I was just going to say, for me, it's I always interchange barbell rows and deadlift movements. Like if I have a rotation with barbell rows, if I do RDLs or any lower back loading, it's a lighter, or I just avoid putting deadlifts and barbell rows in the same.
I've got things, you shouldn't. I think too many people try to do a lot of lower back loading
in one session,
rowing in one session, and all that happens is your lower back gets a battering, and and then by the end of the session you feel like you've been beat up, and it takes longer to recover. The leg session's gonna be bad,
and the whole week, because you're like, oh, I did legs, 100 kilos for 10 reps, now I can only do 6, and it's like, obviously.
So generally speaking, when you're trying to target your mid back, you want a wider arm path, so it's like a 45-degree arm path, and generally more of a semi-pronated grips. They're not, I mean, it depends on what you're using. Like if it's a barbell, it can be quite hard, but if you've got like the T-bar, it can be a bit, you
got changeable handles. I always use the 45-degree handles on a T-bar.
Just if you can get specialty handles, they help so much. They can make that such a huge difference for you to get into your optimal position. And I mean, all we've done is get those cheap handles, and you can just put them on like any bar, anything like that, and it's you can really optimize it.
You can. One way of doing something is you can use an easy bar or EZ bar on if you're going lighter weights on some of your rowing.
The
only problem with them, we normally have a short place to bar the weight, so you can't load them too much. But if you're not, if you're just starting off, they're quite good for getting your hands in the correct position. As you said, just putting some loop handles on that you would use to clip onto a cable station. I use those actually a lot on a lat pull down machine, a plate loaded one, so I can control just loop it over and pull down. So talk about favorite mid back exercises. Obviously chest supported barbell, but I do love and I do program these a lot, pendulum rows.
I
think they're one of my favorites. So just say technical though, so it's not something you give a beginner.
I actually find them quite hard.
There's a lot of pieces. I enjoy doing them myself. I only program them in for people that have been training for a while.
No, but I think those are great too. And like you say, there's some real sort of bread and butter moves there. And then of course, dumbbell versions. You can do dumbbell chest up row, bent over row, and then you've got then you go to your cable, where you can do a seated low row, seated sort of mid row, and then a high row. You've got all of those, and again,
so I tend to do, if I do a barbell row, I will tend to do then a dumbbell chest supported row. Keep it a little bit in close, just to to change up the arm path, but then go to a cable or a machine. To be fair, I tend not to use cables unless it's a sort of a seated row. I like a neutral grip seated row.
Oh yeah, those are good too.
I never do a cable lat pull down.
Oh, I
just don't do them. I prefer to do plate loaded machines, and then I like to do them unilaterally by putting a handle on and really being able then to squeeze into the lat
No, that's true. Those plate loaded ones are really, really good. But yeah, I think, it also depends, like we just said, that if you're watching your lower back, of course, if you're doing barbell, dumbbell, that is going to put more load on it than if you're using a cable. So just, be aware of that. And then, also when you're doing a lot of those mid back, you are hitting your rear delts.
Yeah.
If you're using that 45-degree arm path, you can come up even a little bit with your elbows, and then you will be really getting.
That's why I like trying to pre-exhaust them a little bit, so other muscles take more priority in the pull.
And that rear delt machine, that's actually not the best.
No, I sometimes do. I prefer cables to that rear delt flies rather than that machine. I will use that machine just sometimes for a bit of a jolly up if everything else has been used, just for a warm up, a pre-warm up. If I'm waiting, like if I just got to the gym and I'm waiting for the cable stations to free up, I might sit on it and just loosen my shoulders on a really light weight.
Yeah, it's a weirdly built machine. I tried using it at
It's just a fixed angle.
Just
a fixed angle, and if it's not the right angle for you, you get nothing out of it, and it just hurts your elbow joints.
As a small person,
it doesn't let you drive through your elbows one bit.
No.
It's too wide.
Yeah, and it's too wide for you to think about.
I find it's like a rotator cuff,
it is, and that's the thing. It's why it's good for, say, a warm up.
Yeah,
just to loosen the shoulders a bit. Whereas rotator cuff, get a little bit. But as I say, if you put too much weight on, it's just gonna hurt your elbows. So I see people putting weight on and going leaning back into, and you're like, just do something else.
You're getting then when you see people with straight arms doing it and then all the way back, you're like, now it's a completely different exercise and you're not getting your rear delts. I think rear delts, like most of the rows will get them. And then, I think if you can do a good cable setup, those crossover ones, those are also really good.
And the thing is, it's about finding your natural movement path.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people try to copy everyone else. And it's the same with anything, be it bicep curl. Everyone's muscle is attached slightly differently. So your natural, if it's on a bar, will be your natural bar path or, handle path or whatever, your arm path is slightly different for everyone. So it's about finding. So if you're working with a partner, you may need to adjust the machine. Always think about that.
Yeah.
It's not like don't just copy what they're doing. Just see what feels most comfortable, and you feel it in your muscles. You got to feel it.
Yeah, I think that's why I enjoy like JP and the coach Clay was talking about, the Big Mike. Yeah, it's like sometimes we are not made to be stiff. You don't have to do a bicep curl like a robot. Scoop the weight. It's the same with like rear delts because it's the elbow pulling. And you're trying to open up and like things like that. And it's where people don't understand. And most people will use momentum and just row and throw weights around. And there's a big difference between moving the way your body wants you to and momentum. So
and that's the thing. I think it's important to understand the way the body's put together. Isolations are fine, but generally speaking, our muscles don't ever work in isolation. So your gym session, especially if you're a general population client, if you're not a bodybuilder and you just want general overall look, focus on exercises that work multiple muscles at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Isolation is only good for once you've developed everything to a certain point and you just want to bring out stuff. Because the fact is, no muscle works in isolation. It's just an improbable thing. Trying to force it to isn't always the best for us because you get imbalances. Because if you only ever do isolation work, but you're strong on certain exercises, you just create imbalances.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that's why back is also a very hard muscle to train because you're trying to target such a large area and balance it out.
It can be really hard.
And it's like, if you hear, if you want to get the rear delts, you need to.
But that's what we're saying though. You've got to go in with a plan.
Yeah.
When you don't go in with a plan or a rough idea of what sort of order you should be doing things in, That's when you do get imbalances, because all that happens is I go in, okay, that's free. I'm going to do these row exercises. Okay, I'm going to go to now do deadlifts, because the deadlift station's free, and you end up just loading it with all all lower back loaded things, or you get in and go, oh yeah, a bit tired. I'm just going to do some lat pull downs, that machine, do some overhead pullovers.
Oh man.
Straight arm pullovers, and you end up doing a load of similar exercises because a lot of machines are very similar, and and you just see people doing, go from one machine, say a pullover machine, to doing a cable pullover, and you're like, you're just doing the same thing. You're just doing the same thing with two different things.
Yeah.
Why are you doing that and then skipping everything else? And that's the thing. And I think people, when you don't go in with a plan, is when you start getting imbalances, or I always say your plan should be first warm up, then your big compound, then if you need to do isolation after that. If not, do some other bigger multi-muscle ones, but like using some of the machines.
Yeah, exactly. And like with rear delts, you don't necessarily have to isolate them because you're going to be hitting them so much if you're actually doing a movement properly. So I guess into sort of lat movements, a chest supported lat pull down, but remember, if you want to target your lats, so you're not at that 45-degree arm path anymore. You want your elbows to be quite close to your body, and they stop when they're in line with your body. And this is where just having awareness of how your shoulder blades move is useful. So backtrack a little bit. Like if you're doing mid-back movements, you don't have to start with like a scapular contraction, like pulling your shoulder blades together. Finish like that. That's good. You don't need to initiate with that. And the same with the lats. You don't have to initiate with the shoulders, going down, but that kind of thing of leading with your elbows and then finishing to get that squeeze of really thinking of your shoulder blades going down. I think that is helpful. And so having a chest supported pull down. So like Leon said at the beginning, you're leaning slightly forward, because I think that's a mistake a lot of people make with lats, is they're arching the back, which is naturally not putting the lats in an optimal position for you to
taking them out of the exercise almost. You're almost removing them from any activity.
So if anything, you've got to really make sure that pelvis is tucked under if you're not chest supported, or if you are chest supported, again, still thinking of that, and then finding the angle for you. Like this took a long time to find the right angle where you're really in an optimal position for your lats. Like
I always say, get a bench, flip a bench round, and adjust the upright on the bench until you can find a nice, a perfect hole for you, just to then pull in. Again, put some loop handles on, because then you can get a bit more movement.
You want a neutral grip,
bench,
preferably.
But here's the thing, people have to think about where do the lats attach. Pretty much front of the arm, humerus bone, wraps right round. So, what you want to do is, you want to drive back with the elbows and not pull in with the bicep. And I see so many people with a bicep pump after doing a pulling exercise, and I try to relax my shoulders at the beginning of an exercise, just to roll in a little bit, just to really open up the back, and then pull in and close everything up so it's out and in, because that's the movement of the lat. It goes wide, it goes short.
Yeah, because that's the best cue I ever got. I think I was still a Trojan, and I don't know which coach I was listening to, maybe Australian strength coach, and he's like, imagine there's a string on your elbow, and someone's your arms are just hooks, and someone's pulling it back. Don't think about your hands, think about your elbow.
JP say that.
Yeah,
it's just like your hands are just hooks.
Yeah, because most people think hand and then pull and you engage bicep. Instead, think elbow. And if you initiate thinking elbow and it's like it's not going, then chances are it's too heavy, and you're just going to use your bicep all through. So I find even today when just teaching guys, the cue just helps, because you just start forgetting about
that's the thing, and that is why I know I use my back, because I've got decent back, shit biceps.
That's good.
I just need to do more bicep exercise.
Yeah.
I love back day.
Yeah, and also I think for lats, something people need to remember is very simple. Like if you're targeting lats, shoulder line to hip, your shoulders should be in front of your hip more. So as you're looking for your angle, whether it's lower, whatever, just think hips behind shoulders, and like Clea said, arms closer, finish at where the lats, that line of your body. And in a few weeks or so, you will find just that angle that
I love, rather than a lat pull down, forward facing bench, chest supported, pull over type. It is a pull down. It's almost a pull over because you're driving your elbows down on that curved, keeping them nice and tucked in. The curve using 2 long rope attachments, clipped. You've got one of the bars where you can clip different things, and you just it's almost like skiing movement, but kind of.
That's why even I'd say a cable pullover is a really good lat movement, because you already, like your bum is already behind and you're bringing it in. But also that one, it's a hard one for many people, but it's essentially.
I think that, if you've just got a normal lat pull down, get your handles, put them on there, and then just make sure that you're not leaning back.
Yeah.
I always say you're better off almost testing unilaterally.
Yeah.
Because I think, and this is just maybe it's a personal thing, I find it easier to feel my lats when I'm doing things unilaterally. So I can really focus on one and the feel of one, and knowing that sort of, that movement. And then you can duplicate it to 2 once you've got that feeling, and once you feel, I think, and I always say this to people, don't be scared to move a few things around the gym. If it's a bench that's got wheels, you can move it. You can move it. I know people might look at you, it's strange because it's not something they know how to do, but that's okay. You've got to think what's best for your body.
Yeah, exactly. Don't worry. I think that unilateral lat movement is so good. And remember, you can hit different portions of your lats as well.
You can do it half kneeling.
The half kneeling one is really nice. You can do it half kneeling, high to low. You can also.
That's good because you can really lock into that position, Neil.
So because lats, you can target the lower part. You can target the upper part as well.
One thing people forget about lats. I was going to say one thing about the lats, which is people who love push, your chest press will be a lot better if you can improve your lat strength.
Yep.
Because when you control that bar down, that bar path is a lat exercise. You're keeping your elbows tucked in, bringing your elbows back. Right, it's not the full range of movement, but those lats, having strong lats, will give you stability on your chest pressing.
Yeah, no, good point.
Yeah, big time.
You can also do like bent over rows with more of a lat focus if you're keeping your elbows close to your body, like we said, and elbows stop when they're in line with your body. I would just say that's not the most effective building one, because you've always got to think of how much load can you move, and like, are you stable? That's why having that bench is so helpful there, because you can be really stable and you can focus on the load you're moving. You're not worried about stabilizing yourself, bracing.
Bent over rows, I think you've got to think slightly differently. You're not trying to isolate anything. So find a path, a hand position where it's going to target a bit of everything.
Yeah.
Not too wide where it's too wide to get a full lat contraction, but not too narrow where you're trying to squeeze through the lats. You just want to get a nice in-between grip and do it that way. Get more bang for your buck with those. And then if you do need to isolate, and you will, your lats, then start looking at chest supported exercises, and feeling it, especially, pull down, pullovers, dumbbell rows. Nice. That's why I love a nice chest support dumbbell row.
Yeah,
I love dumbbell rows.
In a way, like, keep it simple. Like, I've also seen people do back days with like 100 exercises. You're like, again, like, have your focus. So
I've really reduced my amount of exercises in things just to go, as intensity increases, There's no need to have
You're
lots
not,
of
yeah, you're not going to be
exercises.
able to do so many.
The only thing is I tend to add now I added more bicep exercise on the end of my pull day.
Yeah.
So I have three exercises on pull days, and sometimes throw an extra one in on leg day. But my actual back exercises no more than 4.
Which I think
I
is
think we're the same.
adequate, yeah. And just, I mean, another way, like you could set it up if you're doing like an upper lower. So you've got 2 upper sessions in a week. You can decide like, okay, back is my focus over push here. So you could start one upper body day with like a mid back focus. Do some pretty heavy sets there. You could do some very light, like lat work, and then do your push. And then on the second upper day, then you could have your sort of heavier lat work, lighter mid back, and then you'll push again at the end. So again, whatever your focus is, start with that. Go heavy, go intense. And yeah, again, you don't need 100 million exercises. I think like having 4 is, as long as they work for you, and you can add your progressive overload on them. That's.
I think that's a good one. It's like if you want to get strong at deadlifts, or you have weak erectors and you've been told they need to be strong, start with the deadlifts. If you want bigger lats, start with lats.
Yeah, because when you were growing your lats, I think with JP,
you always went
start with those,
and then deadlifts last, and it was even more. He put, if I still have enough, in the tank to do, because it was 2 heavy sets of just deadlifts, so he'd always put lats first, and then come down to, I guess it was like width, thickness, but lats first, and then rows, and then finish off with rear delt, biceps, and deadlifts. And then now with it's improved. I play around with it a bit depending on how my rotation looks. So there are days I'll start with the deadlift, there are days I'll end with it. So
I mean, I don't have time to be doing rear delt separately. That's the me just being honest. Like I just do them with my rows.
Yeah, it's just I just like face pulls, I'd say. It's just
okay, fine. That's
yeah.
As I say, it's just I do it at the start of every pull session. Set of face pulls.
And it's face pull. It's like you said. It's for me when like when I had the shoulder issue and I was doing Feldenkrais, and maybe it's placebo, but I just find myself doing face pulls every time because I'd seen like DeFranco saying how it helped his shoulders.
It's a bit like
And
every
on
leg
top of
session.
that,
I start with hamstring curls. I always have one exercise which is purely there to get as much maximum blood flow into the joint, which hamstring curls. Yeah, you can build those, but I don't. My first lot are quite light. It's just to
move the knees,
activate, get the knees moving.
Yeah.
Well,
And I think for me, it's the same with face. It's never heavy. It's never trying to do weak rear delts or
no, I don't go crazy with face pulls. It's not like I'm trying to get PRs.
yeah.
No.
So,
yeah, no, I mean, to be honest, in my back workouts, I rarely do, pull-ups. Only if I have sort of a strength focus or like,
exactly.
like just a goal of wanting to do more. But yeah, in terms of hypertrophy, I think there are much like
they're hard to progress.
Yeah, same.
For me, I put them into a lot of clients' things because they want to be able to do them.
Yeah.
It's nice to be able to do them.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things that everyone wants to be able to do in a gym, at least one pull-up. So I put them in for that reason only.
Yeah, pull-ups and push-ups, same thing.
But it is hard to progress. Like I really love TRX rows and them a lot, but it can be, I mean, you can progress, like you start you're almost standing and then you get lower and lower till you're sort of doing an inverted row, and then you can do it weighted as well. But you do find that you start to do you are doing generally higher reps with those. So again, just think where you want to put it in a program. Like I'll often just put that at the end and just do some AMRAPs with it.
Yeah, so that's kind of how traditionally I've done pull-ups with AMRAPs a lot, just sometimes as a finisher. Just and then start reducing. If someone's doing assist, start reducing the assist.
Yeah.
Over time. With myself, I've done them progressively with a weighted belt. But again, because there's a lot going on with a pull-up, I just this is something I've always been able to do pull-ups, bread and butter stuff. For a lot of people, if it's not your goal, it's not going to necessarily make you look any better.
Yeah, I think I do them because same well, like you guys said, like everyone else. I think the day I can't do a push-up or a pull-up, then I'll know, okay, now I've slacked with my training somehow.
Some problems.
So if I add them, it's where, back day is good, you're feeling good, maybe somewhere you had extra carbs and that session you're feeling, okay, maybe
you're gonna be bad at
I can increase. Yeah. And if I can still do them, there's that, okay, we're good. I'll see you in a few months again. So it's the same.
I mean, during pregnancy, back training is really important because, you want to counterbalance like the growing fetus, but also your growing breast. So it's really important to train that. But it is interesting especially with things like the lat pull downs or upper back pull downs, is a lot, when your baby is bigger, you notice what we call like coning, which is that sort of separation of your abdominals. And it just means you're not managing your pressure correct. So you often have to take those movements out or modify them. So like pull-ups are actually, that's a lot of pressure on your core. So what I was trying to say is a lot of back movements, there is so much pressure on your core. So when you are pregnant, you've really got to manage that and just watch for that coning. So again, like, yeah.
I was gonna say, like something you said there about, obviously made me think about women in general. A lot of women suffer from bad backs when we've got big boobs, and it's because of the imbalance between, the back's not strong enough to support the weight at the front.
Yeah.
And that's just generally, quite a sound thing, which should be, if you've got big breasts, you probably need a strong back.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So don't forget your back.
Don't forget your back. But we're not going to be able to talk about legs today, but that saves another.
Big muscle groups, big chats.
Who knew talking about back would take a whole hour?
Well, I guess if you see the anatomy experts and coaches like back, you can just learn something new every day.
It really is
it's amazing.
Whether it's working, like rehab, working on your posture, whether it's if you're pregnant, whether it's you're trying to improve certain parts of it, how to program it, I think is important. So you can do, just a recap, you can do like push-pull legs, or if you're doing like a 4-day split with upper lower, then you can do that. And just remember, whatever your focus is, start on that. And as Andy said in the beginning, match your nutrition to it as well if you're looking to grow, as always. And you can refer back to our whole episode on like how to build muscle effectively for those techniques in there as well.
Yeah. And well, if you're a bodybuilder, you can do the pro split, but if you're not, you don't need to isolate every body part. So you can do full body, or like Claire said, upper lower push, full push legs, push pull legs, whatever.
Say how you'd program for full. Well, I mean, how I often program for full body is, so I'll start, and again, depending what your focus is like if you're doing a 3-day full body, like if you wanted to grow your back, you could start with your back every single one of those days.
Yeah.
Enough rest days. If you got like every other day training, I'll just start with back every other day.
Yeah, you can. And just
That's
again,
what you want to grow.
Yeah, manage your fatigue. I find my back gets fatigued very quickly, so I have
to do
manage it.
2 or 3 exercises for your back, but more bang for your buck type exercises, I think, with a full body.
Yeah, exactly. Like you were saying, more compound things like the rows. Be good.
Yeah.
So hope this is useful to anyone trying to grow their back, and then we'll catch you next week and talk about how to grow your legs.
Yeah. And maybe touch on pull-arounds, which we forgot.
Pull-arounds. Well, you can talk about that if you want.
Quickly.
No, it's just I've been experimenting with it also. I've been watching Coach Kasem, and he does a lot of he's into both science and like bro science, and just going by science, it's how the lat you are explaining how it comes in from the front to the back, and he was doing tests and how it activates when you pull around. And I've tried some of the exercises, and it's just amazing how you actually do feel it pulling around. And lengthening and shortening, and
That's what I'm saying. Like to get fully lengthened, it's actually got to wrap your shoulder's got to wrap
wrapping.
right round your front.
Yeah. So I guess we're used to training lats on one plane.
Yeah.
So it's kind of different trying pull arounds, and even when
I mean, that's unilateral, right?
I'm doing I don't think there's any.
You can't do
You do that on the cable.
No machine.
Yeah, on a cable. So tell us how
diagonally across from yourself and around.
Well, the only two setups I've done is simple. The cable one, like a bent over row. So it's how you stand. So you're not standing facing the machine. It's more your shoulder is angled. And then as you pull, it's just that engagement. I don't know if you know wood chops, like just engagement of your waist turning around. And then the same with the bench setup. You set up the bench in a high incline style, so you can support one arm, the arm that's not working, and then the arm that's now working pull around. You can imagine you're facing a wall, and then you're turning around to either right or left to take something, and that's pretty much the motion of the lat. But you're trying to do it keeping your hips low, planted into the seat, and at first I'd say start light and just feel how the lat works, because you don't want to be too high and you don't want to be too low when you're pulling. So it's been fun experimenting with that, and just going through the page N1 education and seeing how different ways to incorporate the pull around. So in a few weeks I'll see if there's any improvement to the lats, but it's honestly amazing just when you're doing it, and you can, if your mobility is good, you can really feel the lat just lengthen and come back in as you move around. And still same process. Elbow is leading, arm is just hook, and you're pulling it back into the lat line with the
No, I think that's a really good one. And again, like you'll have to play around with that to find it, and worth watching N1 on IP. And just a final thing, like I generally always use some form of wrist strap or hook for pull, just so that you can again really focus on your back muscles, and you're not worried about like, because I used to get like forearm cramp. It was just the worst.
Because also sometimes you find your grip, it's like doing a lot of erector dominant stuff. Your grip or your erectors die first, even when you're doing a row. So you might not be tired, your lats or whatever, but your erectors.
That's why I like the figure of 8 straps a lot, or hooks, because even if I let go of my hand, keep pulling without even holding the bar and just using the hand.
Yeah, it makes such a difference. So if you've never used those before, and you really want to progress your training with your back, like it is not a cheat. It is not the easy way out, unless
you're not necessarily working on grip strength.
No. Unless you're a power lifter, and I guess you go into a competition where you can't use but anyone else, you're good.
Do it.
But if you feel like experimenting with back, on top of that, try just imagine pulling around things, and you can do it even if you don't have cable. You can do dumbbell pull arounds. I think they've been there a while, but from the Arnold days, but I guess they didn't have all the science to back it up, but there was a lot of pulling around with dumbbells. So try it. It doesn't have to try. So that's what I'm experimenting with back.
So that's interesting.
At the moment.
All right. Well, we will end it there, and we'll see you next week, and we'll talk about legs.
Perfect.
Hello.